5 things that happened after Jesus died. The earth shook. Something extraordinary happened in nature itself when Jesus died. The earth trembled and rocks split. Matthew describes the scene as an overwhelming reaction from creation itself to the divine events unfolding at the cross. The very earth seemed to respond to the death of the Son of God, shaking with the weight of what had just occurred. The tombs opened. Another powerful moment unique to Matthew's Gospel is the opening of the tombs. Many saints, God's faithful people who had passed away, were miraculously raised from the dead. After coming back to life, they entered Jerusalem and appeared to many people. Earthquakes can cause damage to tombs as they were often carved into rock, but the resurrection of these saints was undeniably a divine act. This event points to the triumph over death that Jesus' sacrifice accomplished. Matthew's account underlines that Jesus' death wasn't just a moment of suffering, it was the beginning of victory, where death itself was defeated. This resurrection was a foreshadowing of Jesus' own resurrection and Paul's teaching about Christ as the first fruits of those who will rise from the dead, 1 Corinthians 15:20-23. Through Jesus, a new day had dawned, one where death no longer had the final say. The veil of the temple was torn. At the moment of Jesus' death, the thick veil in the temple was torn from top to bottom. This veil was what separated the Holy of Holies, God's dwelling place, from the rest of the temple. By tearing it, God was symbolizing that the barrier between him and mankind had been removed. No longer would people be separated from God's presence. This dramatic event showed that Jesus' death made it possible for us to approach God directly, as Hebrews 9 explains. The veil's tearing also served as a powerful testimony to the priests of Jesus' work and was likely how they came to believe in him later on. The resurrection of many saints. Following the earthquake, the bodies of many saints were raised, and they went into Jerusalem to appear to many people. The resurrection of these holy people, who had fallen asleep in death, was a powerful testament to the victory Jesus had achieved over death. This miraculous event also pointed to the future resurrection of believers when Christ returns. Though the Bible doesn't provide all the details, we know this event marked the beginning of new life, where Jesus' death led to life for those who had already passed, the centurion's realization. After witnessing these extraordinary events, the Roman centurion overseeing Jesus' crucifixion, along with his soldiers, was moved to declare, "Truly, this was the Son of God." This statement was a profound realization from a man who had seen many crucifixions. Despite his hardened exterior, the centurion recognized the divinity of Jesus through the signs he witnessed. The earthquake, the torn veil, the resurrection of saints, these were powerful testimonies that shook even the hardest hearts. 5 significant things that happened after Jesus died. The veil of the temple was torn. When Jesus breathed his last, the veil in the temple, separating the Holy of Holies from the rest of the temple, was torn in two from top to bottom. This thick curtain had always symbolized the separation between God and humanity due to sin. But with Jesus' death, that barrier was removed. The book of Hebrews beautifully explains that Christ's sacrifice opened a new way for us to approach God. His body was torn, just as the veil was, signaling that through him we now have direct access to God's presence. As believers, we can confidently draw near to God, knowing that we are welcomed through Jesus' sacrifice. There was an earthquake. At the moment of Jesus' death, the earth itself shook, the rocks split, and nature seemed to mourn the death of the Creator. This was no ordinary earthquake. It was as if all of creation responded to the divine event unfolding on the cross. Matthew's account emphasizes how the natural world itself recognized the significance of Christ's death, marking it as a moment that transcended human history. The tombs opened and saints were raised. In another unique and miraculous event, many of the saints, God's faithful people who had died, were resurrected. After they were raised, they appeared to many in Jerusalem, testifying to the power of Jesus' death. This event points to the hope of resurrection that Jesus' sacrifice made possible. While the Bible doesn't provide all the details, it's clear that this act demonstrated the victory over death that Christ achieved, foreshadowing his own resurrection and the promise of eternal life for believers. There was darkness over the whole land. From noon to 3 p.m., an unnatural darkness covered the land. This wasn't an eclipse, as the moon was full and couldn't block the sun. The darkness was a divine sign, fulfilling the prophecy in Amos 8:8-9. It symbolized mourning, judgment, and the death of a great king. For those present, this supernatural event was a cosmic witness to the gravity of what was happening on the cross. It marked a profound moment when God himself withdrew his light in the face of the world's sin. The centurion recognized Jesus as the Son of God. After witnessing the earthquake and all the extraordinary events surrounding Jesus' death, the Roman centurion in charge of the execution was filled with awe and fear. He and his soldiers were deeply shaken by what they had seen, and the centurion boldly declared, "Truly, this was the Son of God." As a seasoned officer accustomed to overseeing executions, his reaction speaks to the profound impact Jesus' death had on those who were closest to the event. The centurion's declaration marks a powerful recognition of Jesus' true identity, one that transcended the brutal task of his crucifixion. The centurion's revelation at the cross, a life-changing moment. To succeed in his role, a Roman centurion had to follow orders without question, overseeing executions and maintaining order. But at the scene of Jesus' crucifixion, something extraordinary happened, something that even a seasoned soldier like him could not ignore. This hardened centurion, who had witnessed countless deaths, looked at the events unfolding before him and declared, "Truly, this was the Son of God." This was no casual statement. The centurion had just realized that he had been part of executing an innocent man. He had overseen the death of a person who, despite the charges against him, was entirely blameless. Imagine the mix of emotions he must have felt: guilt, shock, and awe, all colliding in that moment. These were not the tentative words of an inexperienced soldier, but the profound conclusion of a man who had seen it all. He was well aware of the Jewish leaders' accusation that Jesus was guilty of blasphemy. Even Pontius Pilate, his commander, had reluctantly sentenced Jesus to death. Yet after witnessing the extraordinary events of Jesus' crucifixion, the centurion rejected the condemnation. Why? Because everything he had seen, the way Jesus responded to the injustice, the silent dignity with which he faced his accusers, the merciful words he spoke even as he was mocked and tortured, made it clear that Jesus was no ordinary man. What did he see that made such a lasting impact? It was the culmination of Jesus' arrest, trial, and execution, each moment revealing something deeper about the man on the cross. Jesus' response to his wrongful accusations, his silence in the face of mockery, his forgiveness towards those who rejected him and crucified him. These things spoke louder than words ever could. Even as the crowds mocked him, Jesus prayed for their forgiveness. "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Luke 23:34. The centurion also witnessed something beyond the human response. He saw the earth itself react to Jesus' death. The sky grew dark, the ground trembled, and the atmosphere was charged with the weight of what had just occurred. This was no ordinary crucifixion. It was as though all of creation recognized the gravity of the moment, and the centurion, standing in the middle of it all, was filled with awe and terror. The weight of the love displayed on that cross was enough to pierce the heart of even the most hardened soldier. As a man used to the violence of battle and death, the centurion now faced a truth that was both terrifying and transformative. This was the Son of God. The power of the cross, where love and sacrifice met in the most profound way, had shaken him to his core. From this moment on, the centurion's life would never be the same. As an old saying goes, the ground is always level at the foot of the cross. That day, it didn't matter who he was or what he had done. At the cross, he was confronted by the same truth that anyone who seeks Jesus must face. He is the Son of God, and he gave his life for us. It's impossible not to wonder how this encounter with Jesus impacted the centurion's life. Did he eventually become a follower of Christ? Some traditions suggest that his name was Longinus, and that he became a devout believer and even a martyr. While we can't know for sure, one thing is certain. When the truth of Christ touches a person's heart, it has the power to change them forever. The centurion's story is a powerful reminder that no one is beyond the reach of Jesus' love. His encounter with Jesus at the cross invites all of us to look beyond the surface and see the profound significance of the sacrifice made for us. May we, like the centurion, be moved to declare, "Truly, this was the Son of God," and allow that truth to transform our lives. The cross of Jesus holds the power to transform lives. The Roman centurion, initially just overseeing a crucifixion, ended up recognizing Jesus as the Son of God. This powerful shift illustrates how Jesus has already taken the first step in our salvation. Christ died for you. Now it's your turn to respond. He gave his life so we could reclaim ours. He died in our place so that we could live through him. In doing so, he not only honored his Father, but also won us as his prize. As our substitute, Jesus endured the separation from the Father, a deep and painful sacrifice that fulfilled God's loving and redemptive plan. While some may view this as a myth or theological tale, the events surrounding the cross are unique moments in history that testify to God's extraordinary acts. They are supernatural signs that affirm the truth of the gospel and the life-changing reality of Christ's love. If this message resonated with you, I'd be grateful if you'd support us by subscribing so you don't miss out on future videos. Together, we can inspire more people and deepen our collective understanding. Thank you for being here, and may God bless you.